Dear friends, welcome back. Today, we have a golden episode. I'm using the word golden episode for a reason on the Coach Excellence Coaching Conversations series. And we have a very senior coach today with us, and that's Janet Harvey. And it's sweet of her to accept the invite to join in for one of our conversations. First and foremost, gratitude to Janet for joining in. Hi, Janet.
Hi, Kiran. Wonderful to be here.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining on such a short notice on a request and with having anniversary the next day. So thanks for giving time on short notice once again. So speaking of Janet, she is an MCC level coach from ICF, and she has been a coach since 1994. So all the way from 1994. So what she can share with us, I think, will be a treasure and something that's wonderful for most of our coaches here. So I would not want to take a lot of time away from her, and I would request Janet to quickly share a little introduction about herself for the benefit of the audience. So we begin. Over to you, Janet.
Thank you, Kiran. Bios are a funny thing to me because we're always evolving as human beings. And what I would have said to you in the early stage of my career would be very different from what I will say to you now. It's been a fantastic journey with thousands of leaders and individuals around the globe that I've had the privilege to work with, both as a coach and as a coach educator and as a fellow leader in the world, making a contribution. And what I'm really all about is shaping a world where people love their life's work, however they've defined that. And the incredible amplifying power of the coaching modality to open people to their very best self, causing greatness in themselves and in everyone they touch. So, it really doesn't matter what the resume is, who I'm being today. The common thread is about bringing an environment, bringing my presence, bringing my commitment to another awakening to all of who they are. I've often spoken about coaching as awakening consciousness and ultimately to unconditional self-love. And those are a couple of elements that are important to me in shaping a world where people love their life's work.
That's fabulous way to share little about yourself. I ran out of, I think I had to scribble little whatever I can very fast. But I say I would recommend the audience to just play back the video to little at 2 minutes before and play it again to enjoy it best, because I may not be able to capture it as well shared. And I think things like shaping the world, an opportunity to have it, to get to do that, the blessing is what we can sense here. And you also mentioned about helping, opening people to their very best. I think the world is full of people who want to be their best version. And I think being in that position to support them in realizing their best, I think is an honor in itself. Last word you mentioned about awakening the consciousness, I think is a force multiplier. That word I can use. Because what happens after?
I like that.
I think what happens after is unimaginable by anyone, including that person themselves. They say that sometimes I might have felt that in my own journey of life. Thanks a lot for that wonderful introduction. So with that, let's begin. What is, now that you have been a coach since 1994, what is coaching to you today?
The most deeply respectful conversation between humans that reveals the essence of who each of us are and invites people to express themselves, all of themselves uniquely, without any fear of consequence, being celebrated, being supported, being nurtured, to bring all of who they are to their lives.
Fantastic. I pick up some part of what you shared in the beginning. Deeply respectful conversation. we all long for this kind of a conversation.
Yeah.
In my journey, I have picked this word respect as a very critical word. I think it all starts with respect. It ends with respect. And when one gets an opportunity to often have a deeply respectful conversation, I'm sure a lot would happen after that conversation and between the conversations. And allowing people to express themselves, most people miss that opportunity. It unfortunately necessarily does not happen with parents, siblings, children, or even spouses, or friends, or even best friends. So having that space where they are allowed to express themselves as they are, I think itself speaks what can happen after. So thanks a lot for that. With that, it makes me curious about the next aspect. Who all can benefit from having a coach?
You know, there's an embedded assumption in the question, having a coach. And one of the early visions of the International Coaching Federation was that coaching would become an integral part of society. And I believe that part of why coaching emerged and constellated itself, if you will, it became a practice and is on its way to being a profession, was because we'd in some ways forgotten about how to have relationship that is that force multiplier that you're talking about, right? The opportunity for development as human beings, development of our relationships, development of our experiences. These are what are the outcome of engaging in an embodied mindset of learning, growth, and change, a mindset that is thinking about always becoming, right? Never being a finished product. A mindset that is believing that no matter my circumstance, no matter the hand I was dealt from my history and my lineage and my culture and my ethnicity and my economic status, whatever it might be, that defines one's identity. Do I believe that I have within me the resource and capability to manifest a life that is satisfying and loving? And ultimately, as I walk in the world, what are the values that I stand for? What is my moral fiber, and what is the way I make decisions to ensure that I'm both respectful of self, but I'm also respectful of others, that there's an I within the we and a we within the I kind of approach to things. And I think that that coaching is first and foremost that mindset. And secondly, a set of skills that is more invested in genuine curiosity about who are you and who are we being together than it is in sharing one's rear view mirror perspective, which is where all of our technical skill and our experience and what we think is wisdom and expertise lives. Not discounting those, but they're less important in the moment of the exchange. They've formed who we've become so that something new can emerge. And to me, the opportunity is less about having a coach and more about the experience of being in dialogue, deeply respectful, in the coaching mindset, using the skills that activate genuine curiosity to allow something new to emerge.
I think it went back. I was trying to absorb a lot while you were sharing. It went back to the first one. It is about less about having a coach, but more about having that kind of a conversation, that deeply respectful conversation. It somehow tempts me to point to a recent conversation in my coaches we meet on a weekly basis that I was referring to, where one of the coach said, "Why should even coaching be there as a term?" Then I was trying to say, look, if there is no term or a hook to say this is coaching, the world at large today does not relate to it, that space. So in the absence of a name to the space, maybe if I can put it that way, not identified. However, I think you stitched in a very interesting way and you said it's less about having a coach. It is more about having that deeply respectful conversation, which may happen even with anyone who's not a professional coach,
That's right.
but is a coach unknowing to themselves.
Yes, and coaching came into being as a method for human development. Whether we're talking about performance, which is where it came from in Australia and in Europe about that same time, or we're talking about maximizing potential, which is how it formed and came into being in the United States and Canada. And to me, a phenomenon doesn't get its life force if there isn't a need it's filling. So the question is, what was the gap? In my mind, the gap was that we'd become a bit addicted, perhaps, to producing results, to getting stuff done, to efforting to, bigger is better, more is better. And we left behind an appreciation for the person, the personal selves, the emotional, the somatic, the spiritual side of being a human was undervalued. And in that process, we became less civil with each other. We became less invested in creating dignity.
Maybe say compassionate also.
Right, compassion, for sure. And it became about competition as opposed to collaboration and communion. Okay. And I think that coaching helps to, if we put it in neuroscience terms, we're activating the parasympathetic system that can rest and regenerate. And as we learn to bring that into greater parity, it's not about stopping the effort and the production of results. It's about acknowledging that if you want to sustain that in a respectful, dignified way, we must bring back in an appreciation for the relational elements of being human society.
I think we are first humans as such, which we might want to realize. Exactly. And I think one word you mentioned also resonated with me was when you mentioned I within we within I. I think that journey of when you see things as we and that I'm part of the we and be there for it. I think it's so beautiful. You also captured how our journey itself is limited. The human race journey is a long journey. I think the results probably aren't as important as the methods adopted and who you are as part when you are part of the journey. You are only part of the journey for a short span. So thanks a lot for that. It's been very powerful for me, and I'm sure for the audience who would listen to it twice for sure. So that moving forward, everything in the world today has a myth around it. Obviously, coaching is no exception. There would be many myths around coaching as well. What is that one myth about coaching that you would like to burst for the benefit of our audience?
Maybe it's more of a paradox than a myth. A lot of coaches are, if I take it from the coaching side, coaching perspective, a lot of practitioners think that their value and contribution to their client is by ensuring that the client gets the outcomes they came for. That's not their responsibility. It can't be. The client is in their lives 6 days and 23 and a half hours away from the coach. So by definition, it is not possible to be responsible for the outcomes. What we are responsible for is activating inside of that individual their trust and faith and their motive power to access their own resource and capability. That is the prerequisite to them being able to manifest the outcomes they want. Well, that's a little bit more in the invisible realms, right? A client won't be able to tell you that. That's why they're coming to coaching. Hence why there's a paradox. We think clients know what's best for them. At one level, they do, not consciously. If they knew it consciously, they'd already do it. They wouldn't bring that to
Absolutely.
a coaching conversation, right? It's a bit of a blank space in their perception of self and their situation and circumstance. So it's important for coaches to remember your client really doesn't know what coaching is. And for clients to know it's okay that you don't know what coaching is. Client, trust that you're sensing in yourself that there is something right on the edge of your understanding, that by having a deeply respectful conversation, you will discover it and you will have the support to bust up your status quo and take the risk to do something else. Coaches are about challenging clients' perceptions of self, their belief systems, and examining, being in a reflective space to identify what different am I going to choose? Ah, yes, this is also an important word, the power of choice. So many people go powerless thinking they don't have choice. Well, that's ridiculous. Of course we do. So, what does coaching provide? That safe space for someone to realize, oh, I set my choice tool bag down. I've been following rather than leading my own life. What's one choice, client, that you could make now? But we don't get to that quality of conversation where challenge and choice is restored until we bust up this myth that the coach is going to be the expert and they're going to know and they're going to tell me what to do. No, client, that's not true. You know what to do. You're just not tapping into it consciously. And coaches, your clients don't know yet. So stop thinking that you are beholden to the thing they first say, because it's usually about the 10th or 12th or 13th thing they say that we get to the heart of the matter, the very thing that will be most empowering for them.
I think it resonates in summary as one line to me as a coach. The other day, again, this conversation said, I have trust and faith in the coach. I was saying the senior coach, I would say named Johnny. Then I said, no, trust and faith are different words. Then I said, I know you are fully potential, having the potential to do whatever you would like to achieve. So then in fact, it was a learning for me. Deep inside, I subscribe to that possibility, or subscribe to the idea that coachee and myself are equals. And two, the coachee can achieve anything that they would like to achieve, provided they put their mind to it and put the right effort to it. Then when I use these words in verbatim, it changed to trust and faith. Then I was corrected and I was happy to get corrected. And eventually I said, I know my coachee has all the potential. I think in our life's chapters, we have seen so many who the world thought just can't do it, but they came back to show the world that they can do it. Today morning, we're showing the video of Walt Disney getting rejected 300 times and doing it.
Yeah,
I'm sure
exactly.
the ones who rejected him in the first few times would have had a different opinion on his ability to do it.
That's
so,
right.
Just coming back to what we were sharing, it was so wonderful to hear that the coach does not have to worry when the coachee will get this outcome. If the coach is genuinely, authentically, fully in that conversation, it's an important thing for them. They would get it, and very likely they would share it with the coach. But the coach probably does not have to worry about when will he tell me that. And then it brings the unnecessary pressure. And I think then you are not trusting the coach. So
that's the paradox. You got it.
So it's a wonderful thing. I think this is a space where all the coaches sometimes, I think, get worried about, because often the world has put this perception on a layer called brand. Yeah. And when people talk great things about you is when your brand value or equity goes up. But at least speaking of myself, I realize a coach who has arrived in her life or his life often does not need any halo on their head. No one's endorsement, no one's appreciation, no award, no recognition, no publicity as such. I think they would be like those rishis or the, what you can say, saints who stay away from the attention of the world, unworried about what's my brand value today.
That's right.
So that was very interesting from what you are sharing. And challenging the coaches, this is something that rarely happens in any conversation other than a qualitative coaching conversation, that too respectfully. And I feel the coachee enjoys that challenge or enjoys that space of getting challenged. And then hopefully the breakthrough happens and the coachee is happy. For all you know, sometimes he might have achieved this after he moved on to some other phase of life with some other coach. But as I think coaches, we all would enjoy that journey with the coachee till that time. The coachee chooses to.
That's right.
Great. Thanks a lot for that. And moving forward, one coaching memory of yours. I'm sure from 1994 to now, there are truckloads of memories. One coaching memory of yours that you can share with the audience while taking care of the confidence.
There's one that is that lingers with me from my early days, and I have a tendency to do things we say in English bass backwards. I actually began my exploration of coaching through team coaching, applied to a large-scale change initiative. I was a corporate executive, and we had 6,000 people's lives in our hands to make a huge transformation from customer service to sales. And coaching was just emerging in the United States, starting to get articulated. It really wasn't all the way in. And, the ICF didn't exist yet. There was something called the Professional Coaching and Mentoring Association here in the US. And so I knew some people in the organization development circles and brought them in. And we designed a team coaching approach with 100 people who were involved in the prototyping work we were doing. And I remember the moment that I watched a regional senior vice president sitting side by side with a branch office receptionist. So we have difference in age, we had difference in gender, we had difference in ethnicity, we had difference in hierarchy, and clearly a power differential on paper. You'd never know it. Wow. We'd given them some fundamental skills to be curious with each other, and we set up a container for them to do ideation together. They were the most respectful debate I had witnessed in my 14 years at the organization, and it was extraordinary. There was no power play going on. There was no fear of reprisal going on. There was full permission to describe a customer experience, redesign from what we'd been doing up to that moment in time. And I watched this get repeated over and over and over again. And these people finished under budget, in less time, and beat our employee retention goal by 8 points. It was stunning. That's what led me to become an entrepreneur in 1996 as a coach and a leadership development consultant and a trainer. And I've never looked back. At that moment, when I watched that dialogue that had leveled the playing field, two humans bringing their full potential to a shared purpose, I found what I wanted to be when I grew up.
Amazing. I think only one line I can comes to my mind is there a limit to human potential?
No. I don't think so.
This experience pretty much validates, even from a corporate benefit point of view, as you said, under budget, within time, much better results. What else? And I'm sure they both are better human beings
as a result
of the conversation. Yeah. I'm sure they were great human beings even before. And it has, I think, effectively, definitely supported the community as well, outside the organization environment. What else can we ask for? Fabulous. Thanks a lot for that wonderful experience share. So then let's move to something that we were discussing in the beginning, and that's something we thought we can cover, is what are two distinctive areas of coach development that would lead to mastery? This will benefit the coaches.
So I have two things that are coming to mind immediately. And one I'm going to talk about might sound a little controversial. I I certainly was exposed early in my life to the principle of being non-judgmental. And then I started to hear it in school and in my early professional life as suspend judgment. And what I've learned over the years, particularly as a coach educator, is that's nonsense. It's just utter nonsense. It's not possible. Human beings are judgment machines. It's the way we learn. We see something, we see it in a context, we make a meaning of it, that's judgment. We then say, how is it relevant to me? We make another judgment. We say, how might this be best used? How might this benefit me and someone else? Whatever context we find ourselves in, judgment. Judgment is not the enemy. It's so fundamental. What we are shortcutting in our desire for non-judgment or suspending judgment is the reactivity habits we have. When we want to reject or deny or repel or defer or deflect something that made us uncomfortable, right? Our judgment comes up because we're uncomfortable. Our neurophysiology is predestined to see things as threats. That's the limbic brain, for those that like to think about the neuroscience. And the reticular activating system filters out the things that aren't familiar to us so that we don't have to deal with a lot of threats. Unfortunately, in order to get to the conscious thinking, to be deliberate, we have to suspend the filter. So I'd like to replace this notion of non-filter and suspend filter. If you really want to have a full experience of what's actually happening, not our habit space or preference space or bias space, we must befriend judgment and stop letting it run the show, but use it to make better conscious choices about how we want to relate to our lives. When we do this, you can work with any client because we're no longer needing to see a client that fits with us. We can see their humanity. We can see all of who they are and what they're longing for. It's our judgment that lets us let in something and bring it into a shared space of meaning. So stop making judgment the enemy and practice noticing judgment. And if a reaction starts to surface, shortcut that with the breath. Pause, take a breath, listen a little longer. And then here's the practice tip. Ask a question you truly do not know the answer to. Surrender the need to be right. Surrender the need to show you know something. Surrender the need to take care of somebody. Just keep breathing until the curiosity is activated to ask a question you truly do not know the answer to. Being willing to be disturbed by what the other person says in the spirit of learning and relationship building.
Wow.
So that's the first one. The second one has to do with authenticity. And this is written about extensively. And I'm personally in a judgment about how much the attention is given to the eyes of the beholder. You are an authentic person, Kiran. How do I know that? I can't. You might be behaving with me in a way that I perceive and receive as authentic, but you are the only one who can decide whether you're being authentic with me. So I'm projecting. And it's very important. So to me, one of the things that coaching does is it gives us the privilege. I think it's a sacred livelihood to invite a client to keep tapping interiorly to say, what are your qualities and traits that make you you? What is you uniquely? Who have you been? Who are you being? Who are you becoming? Who do you want to continue to be becoming? Because it is at the core of yourself, your essential traits. That's the first key of the authentic self. And then there's the way we make choices, our principles and our values. What are we making primal? And I don't mean natural, elemental, primal, but primacy. What's the priority we're placing in our lives on our choices? These are the elements that make up the authentic self, and they're only within the being. We have the privilege to evoke awareness of that, get clarity about our motivation, and align our choices in a way that are deeply respectful of the essence, the authentic self of the person.
Amazing. I think that's the best way to uh, get better of this part of the conversation. I think rather than me trying to capture, listen to it once again. But two things that stood out for me is one, you gave a completely new perspective, because in our conversation also I was speaking about how I take pride in not being a judge, what I am feeling. But as you listed out, at what stages you are actually doing that activity, but just that you're not perceiving it. And the best way you mentioned how befriending judgment can be a good way to deal with it, I think would be worth exploring, definitely for me, and I'm sure for the audience. The second one you pointed out, authenticity is so true when you said what I'm projecting is seen and perceived, but what I'm projecting at its authentic best and its authenticity is known to me more than
Yes.
anyone else. And I think that's when I choose to be authentic. And to myself, what I project is same as what I am. I think I stand to gain. And I don't need layers or filters. And often I think you pointed out the sacred livelihood of what a coaching being, I think brings that point home. Coaches, in many conversations, we realized, do not have two lives, only one life. You are a coach on the stage, off the stage, in front of someone or away from someone. Unlike any other profession, we realized you can't have a two versions. Like a sports person can be something on the ground because he or she is demonstrating a skill, but there could be someone else from a value system and so on and so forth behind. That sometimes shocks the world. I wouldn't pick any names,
Right.
but for a coach, I think I can safely say coach has only one identity, right? Outside, and they enjoy being that.
Yes. I think that's
Fabulous. Fabulous one. Thanks a lot for that. So with that, we come towards the end of the conversation. However, before we wind up, I would like to request you one advice that you can share with so many who are considering coaching as a career that would support.
I think the most important skill for coaches or leaders who want to embody a coaching mindset, or parents who want to bring a more holistic approach to their parenting, or folks who are working in a NGO or a nonprofit of some kind who are contributing to collective well-being. How do we stay right with ourselves? And the practice is reflection, self-reflection. I actually was very startled to realize that nobody ever taught me self-reflection, but I have a lot of skill in it. So I've been thinking a lot about this question, and I realized that when I was a young girl, I was an athlete, and my coach taught me to visualize the perfect outcome. And I realized that was the beginning. That was the micro skill building of closing my eyes, being able to, in my mind's eye, have my whole body have the experience of success, of excellence, of full expression of my being. Well, we all have that capacity to self-reflect, choosing to allow space in our lives for moments that are deeply ours, to ask the bigger questions of ourselves that our daily lives often don't ask us to examine. And the question that I started working with about 15 years ago is one I do in a journal, at least for a week, once a quarter. And it's this: what stops me from living my fully potent self? What stops me from living my fully potent self? And it gives me a practice to examine the priority in my values, the beliefs that I'm living, and are they actually serving what I say I want, either aspirationally, inspirationally, or practically. I have objectives and goals and outcomes I want to produce. Who am I being? And where am I stopping myself? Because unless I can catch that, I can't make a different choice.
No, I think in the for the paucity of time, I'll point out two things that really stood out: the ability to reflect, and when one indulges in the activity of reflection, and now I'm more tempted to start visualizing the end goal. During our conversation, I mentioned a couple of instances where it was almost like manifestation. I do believe in it. And the secret is one which actually introduced me to that possibility. And now I'm actually tempted to practice it more often when you are sharing it. Thanks for that. And when you said this line, that you indulge in this activity of writing down, what stops me from living my fully potential self? I think a lot of good will happen. Thanks a lot for that. So with that, I'm sure the audience enjoyed this conversation start to end. I can vouch for it. And with that, we come to the end of the conversation. And for the audience who would like to get in touch with you, what would be the easiest way?
Well, believe it or not, I do answer my phone myself.
That's amazing.
+1 is the country code for the United States, and my number is 360-632-9092. And of course, email Janet, Janet, .Harvey, Harvey, at invitechange.com.
That's amazing. I have rarely seen this happen. But I'll also capture it in the description section so that the audience can get benefit from it. So thanks a lot, Janet. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And just for the benefit of the audience, I'm sure the audience have enjoyed it. And if you have any questions or queries on this conversation, please drop in a line in the comments. I myself or Janet will be happy to reply to you. And if you have liked it, I'm only going to do the first thing to hit the like. And please go ahead and share this conversation with as many whom you feel will benefit. And do feel free to hit the subscribe button so that whenever there is a next episode, you will get the first notification. And thanks a lot for being a wonderful audience. And till we come back with one more conversation, please be safe and keep smiling. And once again, thanks a lot to Janet for this wonderful conversation. My sincere gratitude.
And to you, Kiran, for hosting it. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Janet. God bless. God bless all.